A very good evening to you and welcome to London. The pre-election rhetoric was divisive, the campaigning uncompromising, with violence being a real threat. But post-election, Nigeria's leaders, old and new, are behaving like true statesmen and urging their nation to remain united. I'm Chahan Ramkisoon and this is Africa Wrap. On tonight's program, the calm after the storm. Nigeria gets used to the idea it has a new president-elect. And speaking like a statesman, the outgoing president says his farewells.
I thank all Nigerians once again for the great opportunity I was given to lead this country.
Also on the program, Amnesty International warned of the rise in executions. The campaign group says Egypt and Nigeria are a particular cause for concern. And the Ivory Coast Zoo that's coming roaring back to life, how lions are bringing back the crowds in Abidjan. The winner of Nigeria's election, Muhammadu Buhari, has thanked the outgoing President Goodluck Jonathan for peacefully handing over power. In a surprising move, Jonathan phoned General Buhari to concede defeat and then urged his supporters to remain calm. He told them nobody's ambition is worth the blood of any Nigerian. The peaceful and historic election has been welcomed by leaders around the world. U.S. President Barack Obama has urged the supporters of both sides to continue to respect the outcome and focus on unifying the country. Harry Alsop has the latest.
People on the streets of Kaduna can barely believe it, as Muhammadu Buhari becomes the first opposition leader to win a Nigerian presidential election.
We are out here celebrating because people are tired of impunity, corruption, callousness, insecurity. As you can see, everybody here in Kaduna, we voted for General Muhammadu Buhari, not because he's a northerner or a Muslim, but because we believe he's going to bring change.
It marks a significant change from 2011, when Kaduna State was at the epicenter of post-election violence that left at least 800 people dead. That was related to Muslim opposition in the north to President Jonathan, a Christian southerner, serving another term.
I thank all Nigerians who have made this day possible. Our country has now joined a community of nations that have used the ballot box to peacefully change an incumbent president in a free, fair election.
President Jonathan may be the first incumbent to lose an election, but he's been praised by many for respecting the result and ensuring credible elections. He also phoned Buhari to congratulate him on his victory.
We were at the middle of a meeting with the international observers to try to see how we can still water the tension down. When gladly I called General Buhari, we were going to see him, he told me Mr. President has called him at about 5:15 and congratulated him and conceded defeat.
It's a unique moment for Nigeria, which has been ruled by the PDP since the end of military rule 16 years ago. And it was a convincing victory in the end. Buhari's APC restricted Goodluck Jonathan's PDP to a handful of states in the south and southeast. Buhari won on a promise of change, the party slogan, and sweeping away the corruption in the country. Nigerians also appear to see him as better placed than Jonathan to take on the insurgent group Boko Haram. But Buhari's supporters will have to wait 2 months before they see their leader assume power. President Jonathan isn't due to stand down until his term ends on May the 29th. Harry Alsop, Arise News.
All right, let's go live now to Abuja and join Arise News anchor Charles Anyagolo. Charles, some powerful words coming from Muhammadu Buhari today saying that nobody's ambition is worth the blood of any Nigerian. How is he being received overall?
Well, you sounded a bit muffled there, Shahan, but I assume the question you asked me is how is the presidency, the victory of General Buhari being received? I don't know if you can hear me, but just behind, literally outside there, you can hear people blowing horns, even up till now, chants and cheers, sporadic bursts of jubilation on the streets of Abuja. So there is still the sense that people are waking up to the reality of the change that they have been able to effect. And I think that is the key thing here, that Buhari is seen as a champion of the ordinary man and woman, and the ordinary man and woman feel that they've returned that trust by putting him in power. So there is still quite a lot of excitement, and I think people haven't quite got over the surprise and in some cases the shock of making this happen.
Now, Charles, hopefully you can hear me. Talking about surprises, Goodluck Jonathan gracefully bowing out to Muhammadu Buhari. It does come as a slight surprise to some, doesn't it?
Well, absolutely. The PDP, which has been in power for 16 years, was known, or certainly seen by a lot of Nigerians, as being quite arrogant. You know, the arrogance that comes with power, and almost feeling like this was their birthright, you know, to rule Nigeria. And so when the votes seem to be swinging away from Jonathan and in favour of General Buhari, there was a bit of apprehension in Nigeria that it is quite possible that some of these people in the PDP would want to hold on to power. It wasn't clear the extent to which they would want to exert their influence or try to intimidate or manipulate the vote, but certainly there was a feeling that they'd want to hold on. And so when President Jonathan took the lead and immediately calmed fears by making that phone call, conceding defeat and congratulating General Buhari, I think that was the real balm that sort of calmed the people who potentially might have gone the other way.
So the hard work will soon start for Buhari. I mean, he promised to deal with Boko Haram within a couple of months, alleviate poverty and create jobs. How soon before we can expect to see some of these changes in Nigeria?
Well, his people have been quick to get out and start to say to Nigerians that, you know, you've got to be patient. We have to make a thorough assessment of what is needed, what resources we have, and then we will set our stall and, put out itemize the things we're going to do. But there's no question that the Nigerians will be looking to him, particularly ordinary Nigerians who've been borne the brunt of the allegations of, mismanagement and so on in Nigeria. People will be looking to him to do something immediate. To convince them that they've actually made the right decision. So that's going to be his big challenge. He's got to come up with quick wins, if you like, and one of those has got to be poverty alleviation for the poorest. The other has got to be doing something about the economy to try and ensure that the effects of the drop in oil prices and also the fall in the depreciation of the Naira are to some extent mitigated.
All right, thanks very much. Charles Inyegolo, our anchor there in Abuja, joining us live. And of course, you can expect more updates on Arise News to find out more about the reaction to this election. Now, joined in studio by Adenika Lucas, who's the press secretary of the APC here in the UK, and Godson Azu, who's the PDP chieftain here in the UK as well. Thanks so much for your time, guys. Of course, you're very excited about this victory for Muhammadu Buhari. But first, before we discuss this, let's take a listen to what he said earlier today.
At exactly 5:15 yesterday evening, President Jonathan called to congratulate me on my victory. For this, I want all Nigerians to join me in congratulating and appreciating Mr. President for his statesmanship. The people have shown their love for our nation and their belief in democracy. The declaration of INEC accurately reflects the will of the people. While there might have been some logistical obstacles and irregularities associated with the exercise, the result shall stand as what the people want.
So, Adenike, watching that, you were calling this election for the APC from Sunday when I spoke to you. How do you feel?
I'm extremely excited that the will of the people has prevailed. I'm happy because this is not a win for General Buhari, but it's a win for the Nigerian people. So I'm happy.
Yeah, Godson, I mean, not so great for the PDP, of course. How do you feel about losing this election?
Well, I will not say that it's a loss. I would say it's a gain for democracy. The PDP, the front runners of the People's Democratic Party brought democracy to Nigeria in 1998-1999, and their vision was to ensure that Nigeria live upon the spirit of democracy and build upon the future on democratic principles. And that has come to be. And so it's not a loss for the PDP, but a win to the democratic life of a Nigerian society. And that is a plus for our president. What he has exemplarily stipulated by his congratulatory message to the president-elect shows that Nigeria, as leaders or as an individual leader within the Nigerian political society, has begun to understand the true reflection and the true principles of a genuine and a common democratic principle in a modern society. So I would not say it's a complete loss for the PDP, but I would say it's a step forward for the future, for the Democratic People's Party to begin to learn from their mistakes, learn from their misfortunes, and begin to act as expected. Because what we're looking for is a balanced society, a society where we have a governing political party and a strong opposition party that understands the principles of politics. And so we are looking forward to what the APC is bringing on the table. Yeah. As a socialist complied political structure, we want to see if they're going to bring in a socialist order. Are they going to bring in a socialist reform? Are they going to bring in a neo-socialist, liberal socialism?
Well, that's something you are going to have to wait to see. But before we talk about the APC and the future and what they do in the country, let's listen to just how graceful Goodluck Jonathan was when he bowed out earlier today.
I thank all Nigerians once again for the great opportunity I was given to lead this country, and I assure you that I will continue to do my best at the helm of national affairs until the end of my tenure. I have conveyed my personal best wishes to General Muhammadu Buhari. May God Almighty continue to bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. I thank you all.
So, Adenike, you listened to Goodluck Jonathan there, and you've been saying lots of negative things about him as an individual, about him leading a government that's corrupt, not dealing with Boko Haram, not being able to fight poverty over the past couple of days. But as an opposition supporter, how do you feel about him bowing out gracefully in this election? I
must say President Jonathan must be commended. It shows what is in his act is a true statesman. It showed the act of statesmanship by bowing out and conceding to this election. But I must also say that the attacks on President Jonathan, who still remains our president at this time, were not personal. What Nigeria needs at this present time is a man like our president-elect that we have now, that is going to lead from the front. I've never personally attacked Jonathan. We've led a clean and fair campaign. And I would say, I rightly say on behalf of Jonathan, on behalf of the APC UK, a congratulatory message to Jonathan for bowing out in a right manner, for conceding. He showed and acted like a true statesman, and he must be commended. I doff my hat to him.
Now, Godson, you very nicely put it that this is not a loss for the PDP, and that's a matter of PR exercise, as far as many people would say. But the truth is, this was a strong message to the PDP and Goodluck Jonathan that he wasn't doing good enough in that post.
Yeah, truly. And I want to really say one thing before I comment this. You see, there's a saying in Nigeria that says, a mouth that curses, the same mouth bless. People cursed this man in various ways, and today, many of those tongues are reversing, blessing him for what he has done. Just for 1 hour, he has turned the lips of Nigerians upside down. So, is it when people, I am a man that has principles when I believe in a thing. I never moved, and nothing moves me. Because when I believe in something, I stand by it. If I criticize you, I criticize you to the end. If I'm against you, I'm against you to the end. But the fact is that I hate when people try to change when things are favoring them, and when things are not favoring them, they move the other way. That is not a good politics. That is not a good way of leadership. So, Jonathan have now entered into the history book of Nigerian political history. He has entered into the history book of African politics. That the first in Nigerian history, 55 years of existence, political existence, a sitting president conceding defeat and handing over government to a winning opposition leader. Nobody has ever done it in military forms, in democratic form, in Africa. So he has set a pace, and every other leader in Africa are commending him for what he has done today. But the work is just about to start. Because there is a divide at the moment, a divide between the North and the South. And it is now, like he said in his statement, that he is not leaving government completely, but he will do his best in every area to ensure that the polity remains peaceful moving forward, which is what we expect him to be doing, and which we expect the incoming president to liaise and work in good harmony with the outgoing president in ensuring that there is no retaliation. It may not happen in 2 months' time, it may not happen in 6 months' time, but it's going to happen sometime within the tenure of the new coming president.
It should happen.
He needs that process to be in place.
It should happen. So I have 30 seconds to you, Adenika. Tell me, how soon until we see change under Buhari's rule?
Well, whilst I take on board what Godson has just said, I would like to say that my critic against Jonathan still stand. He is not the right person to lead us, and I'm glad we have a good leader leading us now. I also like to say that, whilst I would not like to dwell on the fact of disunity, we must understand from the result of the election that each candidate had collected more than 25% in all blocks of the area. So we would not like to dwell on that. What we would like to now dwell on is moving on. We would have a president who will unite all Nigeria. We are indeed one nation, and that is what would happen.
All right, and we have to move on now. Thank you so much for your time. Of course, Adenika Lucas representing the APC in the UK, and Godson Azu representing the PDP in the UK. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. Now, plenty more still ahead on Africa Wrap tonight, including the criminals who've been taking advantage of the Ebola crisis to smuggle drugs across the border into Liberia. Stay with us for that and much more.
The best way to predict the future is to create it. There's a special breed of achievers out there called tomorrow's people. They imagine what will be and strive to make it happen. They refuse to wait for the future. Tomorrow bends and conforms to their ideas. At Access Bank, we share the same sentiments. Our mantra for success is simple: speed, service, and security. Tomorrow's people own the future because they keep the world turning. That is the power of taking tomorrow.
You're watching Africa Wrap here on Arise News, broadcasting to Africa, Europe, the United States and around the world. Now, Amnesty International has named Egypt and Nigeria among the countries responsible for an alarming rise in the number of death sentences imposed around the world. The campaign group claims that Nigeria sentenced 659 people to death in 2014, and in Egypt the figure was 509. Amnesty International says much of the increase is down to death sentences being imposed for terrorist activities. It's also concerned about its use as a sentence for general crime.
It's a very worrying development in 2014 that there has been this increase in death sentences. We would hope that it wouldn't be repeated, although we obviously have very significant concerns about the situation in Egypt because of the mass death sentences, which have followed extremely unfair trials. In Nigeria, we're concerned about the way the military courts have imposed death sentences against soldiers, but also Nigeria's seemingly wide use of the death penalty or sentences against people for crime.
Drug smugglers have been taking advantage of the Ebola crisis in Liberia by crossing the border, while security forces have been busy helping people who have contracted the virus. The main crossing point between Liberia and Sierra Leone was closed for 6 months, but has now reopened, and police say they've already made a number of seizures and several arrests. The Drug Enforcement Agency says its men are doing the best they can, but under very difficult circumstances.
We are not equipped.
We are not equipped. When it comes to the drug fight, the drug game is like a terrorist game, because those traffickers have arms and sometimes they fire with single-barrel pistol carried with them. And we don't even have a penknife. But with the mercy of God, we are doing the best we can with the help of the locals.
To Uganda now, and Joan Kagezi, the state prosecutor in the trial of 13 men accused of a deadly Al-Shabaab bomb attack, has been shot dead in Kampala. She was targeted by motorbike gunmen as she drove towards her home. The trial of the men who are accused of involvement in the 2010 suicide bombing, which killed 76 people, has been suspended. It's one of Africa's biggest and most forgotten humanitarian crises. 440,000 people are displaced inside the Central African Republic, with around the same amount of people fleeing its borders. But now, 2 years after the Muslim Seleka rebels seized power, chaos in the country is beginning to turn to calm, a situation cautiously welcomed by locals. Faith Orr reports.
In the heart of Bangui, church services like these are a peaceful and happy occasion. A significant step forward in a country which has seen nearly 2 years of sectarian violence between Muslim Seleka rebels and anti-Balaka Christians.
La communauté musulmane qui, à un moment donné, a été malmenée comme les chrétiens.
We need to recognise that there is a rebirth, but it has been a slow one. The Muslim community was mistreated, just like the Christians, but there is hope. When you go to the streets, you can see that there is a renewed activity. People are getting back to their routines and schools are open.
These scenes on the streets of Bangui attest to a more settled pattern of life emerging, with Christians now able to venture to the market in the Muslim neighbourhood, while Muslims are also returning to parts of the capital that were hostile to them.
We are all brothers, we are all family, we are all cohabiting with the Christians. It will be fine, we are all in this together.
But not everyone agrees. With hundreds of thousands of people still displaced inside the country, many refugees are sceptical of claims of CAM, and so are police.
I don't fully agree with this because there have been too many incidents. For example, at night we still have a lot of robberies, as well as armed robberies, which is why we are still scared, and on top of that, there is no electricity.
Cases of robberies are everywhere. Can't close our eyes to it. If someone is found with a weapon, then we cannot let them go. We have to arrest them. That's the law.
From a Western point of view, the worst is deemed to be over, with the European Union's force pulling out this month and France scaling down its 2,000-strong mission. Security in the capital is now in the hands of UN peacekeepers. Getting life entirely back to normal here will undoubtedly take a while, but there are certainly glimmers of hope. Faith Orr, Arise News.
And it's been a tough few years for the zoo at Abidjan in Ivory Coast. Food shortages, Ebola fears, and even concerns about toxic waste have made it a challenging time for staff and the animals. But the arrival of 3 new lions may be the start of more promising times. Helen Percival has more.
After years without one of its main attractions, Ivory Coast's National Zoo of Abidjan is once more roaring into life. The delivery of 3 big cats from South Africa, 2 females and 1 male, is at last filling a void left after the zoo's previous feline residents died during the unrest following elections in November 2010.
The lions died before our eyes because we had nothing to feed them. They only eat meat. We didn't even know how to feed ourselves.
More than 3,000 people died during Ivory Coast's post-political conflict, and only a handful of the zoo's residents survived. And conflict hasn't been the only killer here. Around a dozen animals died from toxic waste poisoning, and a number of monkeys were abandoned when owners feared they were carrying Ebola. Despite the challenges, the zoo's director is optimistic about its future.
The National Zoo of Abidjan will become a zoo when all the international norms are in place. That means that all the animals in cages will be able to go into semi-natural areas, which are closed, but don't give the impression that a chimpanzee is in a prison.
With zebras, giraffes and other cats soon to arrive, it's hoped the zoo will serve as a mini safari in the heart of Ivory Coast's economic capital. The first few visitors haven't been disappointed.
I see lions all the time on TV, but I've never seen them in real life. I feel blessed. I'm really happy.
As one of West Africa's largest zoos dating back to the 30s, there's also a cultural heritage to be preserved. The arrival of the 3 cats is a powerful symbol of the zoo's rebirth and a future built on pride.
And that's your Africa Wrap for tonight, Wednesday, April the 1st. Join us again at 1800 GMT tomorrow. For now, though, do stay with us here on Arise News. Coming up straight after this program, Charles Anyagolu will be bringing you Nigeria Decides, a special 90-minute program looking at the reaction to this historic event in Nigeria. From me, Shahan Ramkisoon, a very good evening.